not be able to use that money to buy health care.
That's right.
And this is exactly what's happened in Canada, and why they had the big lawsuit recently. That was just within a year or so ago in Canada, where a private person sued the government for the right to obtain health care outside of the system. And I think he won the lawsuit. However, the fact that the government was fighting it indicates the mindset of the egalitarian, big government people, that they do not want you to be able to buy health care with your own money.
Yes, and in Britain they're fighting that battle too. I know that because there is now a shortage of dentists, because there are so many private dentists, there's a lot of people pushing to outlaw private dentistry.
Well, socialism is kind of like an octopus. It's just kind of deep in and encompasses everything, and so everything gets sucked in eventually. It's like a whirlpool.
Yeah.
More of an analogy. Everything has to get sucked in as things go wrong in the system. They think, oh well, it would be a lot better in the socialist system if they included this or that, or the people that are excluded have to be all included. And so now that's a natural tendency.
Well, that was my impression. I watched two good, and people can still probably catch them on C-SPAN. There was two lectures over the weekend that were by authors who had written books very critical of FDR's New Deal, and each one had interesting insights on the pervasiveness and just the onslaught of anti-capitalist regulations and public spending and taxes. Just things were coming every week, every month from.
Well, they called it the harebrained idea of the week.
Yeah.
The critics of the New Deal.
Yeah, it was endless new taxes, new regulation, new spending, and price controls and bans, and just endless hostility toward free markets. And it went on, and it held unemployment high up at an average of 17% all the way through 1937 or 40. I mean, most of the first 8 years of his term. And even when they got out of unemployment, and with World War II, it was an artificial lowering of unemployment because, of course, you ship 12 million people overseas.
Drafted 2 million young men and sent them off to foreign countries to fight, so that really helps with the unemployment figures.
Yeah, but as you said
and then, of course, all the factories had to gear up for a war machine, so they had a lot of jobs there.
Right. But as you mentioned, even in your memory from your family, the standard of living was lower.
It's all done at the expense of the consumer economy. I assure you.
Yeah, there was much less free trade, lots of price controls.
Very similar now with green energy. It'll be all at the expense of the consumer economy.
The harebrained idea of the week. Well, that's the pace we're getting these ideas now, and they're being.
You know, I have recognized, I've noticed that. It seems like every week that there's another bad idea coming down through the news media.
Oh, they are, and it's, well, of course, they're able to pack dozens or hundreds of them in a single stimulus bill that they just ram through, and they put all their pet projects and favorite fantasies.
Right. We don't even get to debate it before it's passed. We have to thumb through the bills after they're passed to find all the things in them.
Yeah, so it's just a grab bag of arbitrary controls that they've thrown out there, and with vague language, so that they can enact them any way they want. There's so much spending that they can't even physically do it in the time that we need the so-called stimulus. So, the whole thing is a sham.
Well, I'm not concerned that the stimulus is not in a timely way, because I don't believe that the government is capable of stimulating the economy anyway. It's capable of crashing the economy, and that's about all. So the slower they go about that, the better it is.
They're able to kill confidence, and they don't know that the existing system, the free market system, becomes a very complex set of interrelations that if you disrupt a few of them, of course it is going to cause a chain reaction of failure and loss of confidence. Not to say that there wasn't over-speculation. In any normal bubble, there is over-speculation. That's the definition of a speculative bubble. But it was just aggravated in this case by loan interest price controls by the Fed and regulations that forced bad loans out to millions of people who otherwise would have never been able to get them in a normal free market.
I had that explained to me once, and I think I understand it. But let me say this about that. That the free market is capable of speculative bubbles all the time, and that's not an unusual thing. But those speculative bubbles occur in segments of the economy. To have a speculative bubble that it takes down an entire economy of a country and of the world, that really requires government interference, because the free market is not capable of self-destructing all sectors at once.
Right. That's right, and there was, I think, a fallacy set up from my research. The panic of 1907 was a typical speculative panic, and part of that was a collusion on the part of the banks in investing in copper futures. And when the bottom fell out, the banks were beginning to fail, and J.P. Morgan came in and saved the banks along with him and with some of his friends. And they said after that, we must never let that happen again. And even the bankers themselves went to some island and hatched the whole idea of the Federal Reserve, and then eventually was passed in 1913.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and so even with the agreement of the big banks, but I emphasize the big banks. Because there's always a tendency toward oligarchy. If you're in the upper crust, you're going to want to solidify that position and become too big to fail. And I think that's where the too big to fail mentality began, was when they hatched the Federal Reserve back then.
Well, that's right. And what I have read is that before the Federal Reserve was created, banks had a tendency to have bank organizations, joining together of banks for mutual benefit, and to save all the banks would get together and save banks that were undergoing bank runs and this sort of thing. And the government stepped in with regulations and prevented that. And that's really what triggered the situation with the bank runs during the crash of '29, was that the regulators had really prevented the banks from organizing to save themselves.
Yeah.
So, and that then promoted the idea of the FDIC, the Federal Insurance Corporation, to prevent bank runs. But the whole point was that government incompetence breeds the need for more government interference into the marketplace.
Yes, and it's the same old pattern. They create the problem, then they solve the problem by taking more control, and then claim credit for solving it. And not only that, we're also facing a similar mentality which was faced after the crash of '29, which was protectionism. I'm hearing a lot of the Buy American, Save American jobs.
Free trade versus protectionism,
Yeah, I'm hearing the same kinds of talk as we have to save American jobs.
I understand they had a Buy American phraseology in